All right. What's good, y'all? This is Jay Quan Bowden here. Welcome to an all-new episode of That JUCO Life. And we are here with a special guest today. This coach has been around basketball for a very long time. Former Pitt Panther. He coached on all levels in JUCO and Division III. And he is here to talk to us about his experience on the local scene, especially at of defunct program that's not around no more, SUNY FIT. I'm here with Coach Charles Jackson. Charles, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? How's everything, man?
Everything's good. Everything's good. I'm glad that we was able to connect. Want to give a special shout out to Coach Tom Tippy McTurnan of Big Apple Sports for connecting us. And this is just a part of a mini series, a part of our series as we talk about SUNY FIT, a program that was actually at one of the best programs in the nation. Now they don't even have a basketball program no more in New York City. So you're one of the first guests with deep connections to the program. So let's just start things off briefly with your playing career. You know, where did your playing career begin? And how did you end up going to Pitt?
Well, actually, in high school, I played football. I didn't even play basketball. I had the pleasure of going to Truman High School in the Bronx. And while I was there, we had Rod Strickland led us to the city and state championship in '84, my junior year.
Right.
Before he left to go to Oak Hill, of course. So at the time, I
Yeah.
was playing on the football team, but always played basketball, citywide, New York City housing tournaments, Jerome Pickett up in Co-op City. I
Okay.
played in those tournaments. When I went to Pitt, went to Pitt as a regular student, didn't play, and I really got my start into basketball when I came home after I graduated from Pitt. And actually, I followed an ad in the New York City Newsday. Do you remember the Newsday paper that used to be here in New York City?
Yeah.
Newsday. There was an ad for an assistant coach position at Bronx Community College.
Right.
And I went to the interview. It was with my good friend Steve DeMayo, who's now an assistant at St. John's. And he hired me, but at the time he was making the move over to Monroe College. So he brought me over to Monroe College as an assistant, and I was an assistant with him for 2 years before taking over the head position in 1995. And those 2 years as an assistant, we really put Monroe College on the map. I think one year we were 28-3. We made it all the way to number one in NJCAA Division III basketball at one point. So we really, really, put Monroe College on the map. And then, throughout my 7 years as a head coach there, that's when I got introduced to FIT and head coach Marvin Rippey, who was running the program over there. A couple of my friends, Rock Buns, Tracy Bradley, the fellas that I grew up in high school that went to Truman with me, played for Rippey at FIT. But I really didn't get to know the man until, obviously I got an opportunity to coach against him. And then ultimately I went down there and became the head coach as well. So, when you talk about the Fashion Institute of Technology basketball, it begins and ends with the story of Marv Rippey.
Right. And I'm hoping that we could connect with Marv Rippey soon to get, his experience with coaching FIT. So like let's talk about FIT. My brother is a graduate at FIT. He graduated there twice in 2013 and 2015, got 2 degrees from there. And one of the craziest things I found out on Facebook while he was attending there was a guy by the name of Terrell Kelly, O-Head. And we were friends on Facebook. I had never met the guy in person, but we were friends on Facebook somehow. And he used to have these old pictures of street ball legends and all. And then he had this photo of the FIT basketball team. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. FIT had a basketball team? that's crazy. And I'm like, he was, really going on. He was going around about, oh wow, FIT is closing down their basketball program. They're getting rid of it. I think that the building where the gym used to be belongs to Parsons now, if I'm not
Mm,
mistaken. I could be wrong, but um, you know, that always stuck with me. And when I came up with this idea to do that JUCO life as an interview series,
mhm.
I wanted to go into the history of FIT and just be enlightened on how that was, because it's basically some lost history of New York City basketball. A lot of great players came out of that program. Who went on to have great careers in all levels of basketball. Big major shout out to Dominic Jones, Watley legend. I think he played at FIT for a while before heading off to Division II school in Kansas. So and he's now a world professional ball player playing 3-on-3 basketball all over the world. So look how it's done for him. So shout out to Damo. Um, so let's describe what was that journey like when you first got the job at FIT and how that was.
Well, just to tell a story, let me back up a little bit, just to lay out the landscape. Understanding New York City Junior College, you have to realize that there's Division 1 and there's Division 3.
Right,
And the Division 1 JUCOs get to go out to the national champ. If they are lucky enough and good enough, they get to go out to the national championship out at Hutchinson, Kansas. Whereas the Division 3 JUCOs go upstate, normally to Delhi, New York, for their national championship. So
right,
there's a difference. So for a long time, Westchester Community College and FIT were the two Division 1 JUCOs in New York City.
right,
Coach Arrieta at Westchester for many years and Marvin Rippey at FIT for many years battled each year. So the winner here normally would have to play, I think, the winner down in the Maryland region for an opportunity to go out to Hutch. And for many years, Coach Arrieta and Coach Marv Rippey from FIT would battle for that opportunity. While when we started at Monroe College, we were a Division 3 JUCO, and then eventually we became a Division 1 JUCO. But the landscape is of JUCO basketball. You're talking about Westchester Community College and FIT. And when I want to talk about first when I coached against Marv Rippey and FIT. First of all, going down, taking your team down to FIT, especially on a homecoming night, was fantastic. It was almost like a Duke North Carolina game. It would be packed. It was a small court. FIT is 80% women, so it was a lot of women in the crowd. Of course, the players like to go, love that aspect of it.
right.
So they would get hyped to try and go down there and beat FIT on their home court. So it was always a thrill to try and go down there to FIT and beat them. When I was coaching at Monroe, one of the magical things that happened, and FIT had a lot of success again before I, got into coaching, but when they impressed me, and Marv took a team out to Mesa, Arizona. And the Mesa, Arizona tournament was always one of the top tournaments early in the year. And FIT went out there and won the tournament. And we knew that they were serious that year to take a team out there and go out there and win that tournament. So that really impressed me about Marv Rippey and what he can do down there at FIT. FIT is a school that it's a fashion school. So it's tough for guys to really find majors that interest them unless you're in the fashion. Maybe you could do a little bit of business, maybe some marketing, but it doesn't have the whole gamut of majors for young men who want to get into a lot of other things. So that made FIT a tough place to recruit. It's on 27th Street. Obviously, you're getting a lot of guys from the outer boroughs, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, who have to take that commute um, in and out, back and forth from FIT. But the magical thing, and what puts it ahead of a lot of JUCOs in the area, FIT does have dorms. And because they have dorms, if you're lucky enough, you can utilize the dorms to try and bring in some big time recruits if you're lucky enough, and keep them in the dorms. That way you'll have them for the season and they don't have to commute. But FIT, so that impressed me while I was coaching against them. In 1998, I took a team to the Division III national championship, and we were very, very good. And we had to beat FIT 3 times that particular year. We beat them twice during the season, and we beat them in the Region 15 tournament. So as you mentioned earlier, I think Andre Rivera was on that team, and they were a stout basketball team program and team that year. So I have a lot of respect for what Marvin Rippey has done, did while during his time at FIT. And it's a shame that they took away the basketball program, because he he's probably their one and only. He's the first Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer of FIT basketball.
Right.
After I left Monroe, I got an opportunity to become the head coach at FIT, and I was only there for 2 years before leaving to go to John Jay College. Um, but I was able, I realized some of the obstacles, like I mentioned before, about the majors and guys commuting uh, around coaching at FIT. But I had a great time there. I was a part-time head coach there. It was a great time. Our teams were competitive. We lost in the Region 15 playoffs both years. But FIT is a mini gold mine. At the time, I thought it was a mini gold mine because of the dorm aspect and being able to utilize the dorms.
Right. Right. And I think that sounds great because I remember helping my brother move in years because when I was leaving John Jay to go to SUNY Albany, he was graduating out of high school to go to FIT. So it's
Hmm.
like going down there to the dorms, helping them move, taking that one train from Columbus Circle to get there. It's a great experience and it's a great vibe, and I think that if the basketball program was still around now, I think a lot of players from the city who would like to take the JUCO route will probably choose FIT. I think so. They will probably choose FIT. And like you said about the majors and stuff, I think if there was like if guys wanted to do business and stuff like that, like I always hear a lot of athletes talk about they want to do business, and some of these players like I'll be covering high school basketball for about I would say December will make about 6 years. So I know many of these kids, they're into fashion and stuff like that. So some kids might have benefited from going to FIT if the basketball program was still around and still thriving. Like it would have been great. But then again, we do have Monroe is now a Division I JUCO. Um we got BMCC here that's doing well as a Division III JUCO. Hostos is doing well. Players from those programs are actually getting into great schools. And also I think also the fact that the out of state schools, because I'm shout out to my recent guest, Brandon Goebel. He spoke about from JUCO Advocate. He spoke about how those schools out of state kind of like gives the city kids an escape. So there are some kids from the city that are going to choose, the Indian Hills and the Pratt Community Colleges and the Hutches of the world, just because it gives them that escape from the city life. So I mean, JUCO's hot right now. Also given the fact that COVID has really cock blocked recruiting in many ways, and also college basketball with giving players extra years of eligibility and stuff.
Well, let me touch on that a little bit.
Okay.
First and foremost, as a coach, coaching at FIT and even coaching at John Jay College, the hardest thing for a coach has to do is to convince a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" kid to get on the train and commute every day to school when he
Right.
has the option of going away. That's the
Right.
hardest thing. That's the hardest thing a coach in New York City has to do. Convince big guys to stay home, commute, get on that subway, when as a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" kid, you have an offer to go sleep in a dorm on a campus somewhere else. So
Right.
from a coaching perspective, that is difficult. But that's what made FIT very special, the dorm aspect. When
Right.
they close off 27th Street, it's like they have their own little campus from 7th to 8th Avenue
Right.
on 27th. They have the dorms, they have their classes, they have their cafeteria, they have their bookstore. Everyone in nice weather, everyone sits outside in front and they're little on the street right there. It's a beautiful environment to go down there during the spring and summer to see the campus and to see how it's the environment and how everyone's thriving down there. And it's great to walk a recruit onto FIT on a spring day to show them this is the environment that they can get out of coming to FIT. But you're right in that the out of state JUCOs had that ability to say to a kid, look, get out of New York, you can focus better. Most schools outside of New York City are Division I JUCOs, so they
Right.
do get recruited by D1 schools. So it is an incentive for kids to go away, especially if their home life isn't settled right,
Right.
or if they don't have the support system around them, which will enable them to become a good student. So, for some kids, there is an advantage of going away. The bottom line is you have to be mature both ways. Did I freeze up? It looks like I froze.
Um,
My
in
picture.
in the past, you was like lagging a little bit, but it happens. It's probably the Wi-Fi on my end, but before you stopped, you was good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a Wi-Fi thing.
all right. So I think the maturity has to be both ways, because a lot of kids do go away and they do end up coming home because they're not mature enough to be away from home. They
Right.
don't go they don't go to school. Then they get in trouble off campus or what have you. So it takes maturity to go away, but it also
Right.
takes maturity to stay home, because at home you're around your friends, you're around your neighborhood. So to go to school every day on the train, that takes a sense of maturity as well. So but FIT was a great environment. When basketball was rocking down there, they had the support, they had the cheerleaders out there. It was they had quality uniforms. It's a fashion school, so their uniforms always were on point.
Right.
And it was the only male sport there, I believe. So it had the support of the athletic director. Whereas the women, they had women's basketball, they had women's volleyball as well. But the men's basketball program was their only men's intercollegiate sport. So they put a lot of support behind it, especially because Marvin Rippey had that program playing very, very well. So it could justify the support that they were getting.
Right. Right. definitely a great point there. And also to mention about the out of state JUCOs, I think they face a lot more pressure with getting enrollment than colleges in the city because it's well some of those schools may be
Well,
smaller, but they need enrollment. Like from my recent guest, that's what he told me that they need sports for enrollment. Whereas in the city, they got a whole lot more students than the schools out of state. So it's like, you know, some people may feel, do we really need sports when we got like 40,000 students already attending? It's that's kind of like how it is, and that's what I kind of realized from my last episode with Brandon.
well, to touch on that, think about that. Um, yeah, some of the schools in the middle of nowhere need sports to bring in students, but they're also paying for that student to be there. So
Right.
if they're giving tuition, if they're giving room and board, they're giving meals, they're giving books, they're paying a pretty hefty price for that student to be there. Um, so, whereas here in the city, which is why I think New York City JUCO should be bigger than it is, because if you think about it, Borough of Manhattan Community College, FIT, and at one point TCI, and then at one point Globe. But for a
No.
long time, it was just BMCC and FIT on the borough of Manhattan.
Right.
And then you had in the Bronx, you just had Bronx Community College for a long time, and
Right.
then Monroe got off the ground in the 90s. In Queens, you had Queensboro Community College for a long time. Um, and in Brooklyn, City Tech was a JUCO program for a long time. So for a long time, you only really had about 5 or 6 JUCOs in New York City. Over the years, they've added like Monroe and Globe and TCI. They've added those JUCOs, but for a long time, for high quality JUCO action,
Hmm.
you were either going to Westchester Community College or
Yep.
FIT, and
Yep.
that was the pipeline for a lot of kids to go to Division 1 or Division 2 and play basketball.
And that's a fact. And we did our interview on Brian Gardenhire. Big shout to him. He's a All American out of in Region 2 top player from Westchester Community College. Big shout out to him. Who's doing great things. So um moving right along. Who some fun questions. I always ask coaches. Who was the hardest player to coach against, or who was the hardest team you ever faced? But you know, you coached at Monroe, you coached at FIT, and you coached at John Jay.
Mhm.
So for each for each coaching job you had, name a player or a coach that name a player or a team, I should say, a player or a team that kind of gave you the fits. That was a challenge, and then like kind of like pushed you to be the best.
Well, I think that's a great question. Love to answer it. While at Monroe, we always had problems with Sullivan Community College, and got to coach against Ali Mo, rest in peace,
Okay.
and Puda, Courtney Miles. They were on the same team. That Sullivan team was very, very tough. They were a great group. FIT, Andre Riviera.
Okay.
Uh, they were a tough team. Um, um, Westchester had great teams as well. But for a duo, probably that Ali Mo and Courtney Miles team, they were very, very good. While I was at FIT, Hostos had Bob Holford, Coach Bob Holford was coaching at Hostos at the time, and he had Donald Henney was there. and they had a really good team up at Hostos at that particular time. Um, and When I was at John Jay, York was running things in
Mm.
CUNY when I was at John Jay. That's who we ultimately beat in the '08 CUNY championship
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
because they had been back-to-back champions, and I think they were going for a three-peat when they came up against us. And York was really running things. Coach Ron St. John's, he had it rolling over at York. So they were very very good. Um, so coaching at Monroe, we were very very talented. So what made me a better coach was coaching at Monroe taught me how to manage talent because we had so much of it. Isaiah Francis, Mike Nurse, Joaquin Reeves, Waverly Fredericks, Derek Frazier, Virgil Smiley. You know, when I was an assistant, Book Richardson, John McCord, Robert Hoffler, Andre Penny, Omar Calhoun, DeWitt McCall, rest in peace to him. Deion Davis. We had great talent while I was an assistant and when I was the head coach at Monroe College. When I got to John Jay, we weren't as talented. So I had to become a better coach, especially my first couple of years. I had to become a better coach, figuring, understanding sets, understanding motion offense, figuring out ways of how I can get my team to score. And that made me a better coach. So now that, when you have talent, you just add some of those principles that you learned while coaching at the Division III level,
Right.
and it just pretty much rounded me, made me a well-rounded coach. Um, but coaching is great. I always say that the wins and losses come and go, but it's the relationships that you make that last a lifetime. And being able to mentor young men, get them, when you're coaching JUCO, you a lot of the young men, you're trying to get them on the right track with their education, helping them mature so they can go on to play at senior colleges. At the Division III level, those are 4-year schools, so those kids are a little bit ahead academically. So it's just finding talent, and at the Division III level, you got to get lucky sometimes and get a kid that's going to fall back down. So maybe a kid that went away to a D1, it didn't work out. He still wants to play. Let him fall back down to a D3. If you can get somebody like that, you're very, very lucky, and your team is going to be very good.
Nice. I mean, that's truth right there. And I mean, going back to mention the names, Joaquin Reeves is pretty familiar because I graduated from Martin Luther King Junior High School for Law and Advocacy in '07. That was basically 23 years after they won the city title against Lincoln, and Joaquin Reeves was actually on that team. So
Well, let me
big
tell
ups
you
to
about
him.
I when I was at Monroe, I wanted I when they wanted, I tried to get when I was an assistant, I wanted Joaquin Reeves, but his
Right,
family wanted him to go away. We talked about that earlier. So
right.
he went to Arizona Western for 1 year. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. Guess what? He came back home. I got him my first year as a head coach. He was my point guard, and he played fantastic basketball for us. I think we won 28 games. We went 28-8 that year, and Joaquin was fantastic. He formed a threesome. I had Joaquin Reeves, I had Isaiah Francis, and Waverly Fredericks. So at the 1, 2, and 3, and they were fantastic.
Dope. I mean, great. I mean, hopefully we can get Joaquin Reeves one day on this show. I mean, always good to connect with players who were dominating the high school scene back in the '90s. But we almost closing this one out. But a few more questions.
Sure.
Um, for one, uh, what is some advice you can give to future prospects out here in the city? I know you still are coaching to this day. Like, what are you doing now as far as coaching? What are you
Well, right
doing
now,
for?
well,
Okay,
right
go ahead.
now I have two sons that play high school basketball. My
Okay,
son Chaz was playing at the Dwight School in Manhattan, and my son Chase is playing at Paramus Catholic over here in New Jersey. So
nice.
right now I'm helping guide them through this basketball world that's out there right now. Um, for young recruits, um, it's tough right now because there's so many people that uh, have advice. Everybody's an expert at basketball for
Mhm.
whatever reason. Everybody's giving their 2 cents, and you first have to find somebody that cares about you. Whether it's your parents, whether it's your extended family, whether it's your coach, you have to find that support system that's going to that cares about you and can direct you and help you get the most out of it, both academically first and then basketball second. It's not basketball first and academics second. It's academics first, because academics, your education is going to last much longer than your basketball career. And the ball's going to stop bouncing at one point, and you're going to have to go out there and support yourself, support your family, and having a good foundation of an education and the networking that comes behind it will open up a lot of doors. So the first part of it is finding a support group, finding some place that cares about you. um, the second part of it is go someplace where you're going to play and get better. A lot of kids go to schools where they're sitting on the bench. You can't be 15 and 16 years of age sitting on the bench thinking that you're getting better. You've got to go to a school where you're going to play. But that's tricky because there are a lot of coaches that are not doing right by kids. So there are a lot of head coaches at the high school level that are just doing it as a side gig. It's an extra stipend for them just to do an extracurricular activity. You don't want to go to a school like that. You want to go to a school where the coach is as passionate about the sport as you are. You
Right.
want to go to a school where the coach has a track record of sending a kid to colleges. You want to go to a school where you're wanted, where the coach wants you. So it's a three-pronged thing. A coach that is passionate, a coach that has a history of sending people, and a coach that wants you. Because if they want you, you're going to have the opportunity to play. So it's and that's where you that's that goes back to my first part. If you have a support system that cares about you, they're going to help you make the right decision as to where you should go and play. Because a lot of kids don't have that, they make errors in judgment in deciding which
Oh,
school they're going to go to. And that then you have kids bouncing around here and there. So it's real difficult to navigate through the pretenders and the contenders of coaching, of the school, and where you think you can play.
wow. Those are some gems right there, and I hope that our audience understands the gems that you're dropping today, because they're definitely going to need this advice right now, as well as the parents of these players. And just thank you for coming on. I'm going to discuss with you further instructions of what I need to help complete this episode. But once again, man, thank you for coming on the show. Great interview today. This is episode 2 of that JUCO Life of season 2, and this is Jay Quan Bowden, Coach Charles Jackson. We out, y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for coming on.
Okay. Take care.